Thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, President Joe Biden finally inviting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House. The invitation coming amid internal divisions in Israel that have spilled into view around the world. We'll bring you the story from Jerusalem. How hot is it? Phoenix looking to set a record for consecutive days over 110 degrees. And you may not believe how hot it got in Death Valley. As a surprise hit movie, Sound of Freedom has brought the issue of child sex trafficking back front and center. We're going to hear from a Christian woman in Southeast Asia who's fighting trafficking by providing shelter for victims in her own home. And good news for fans of The Chosen. We'll tell you what the future holds for the series about the life and ministry of Jesus, now that Hollywood has been shut down by the writers and actors strikes. Those stories and more today on Newswatch.
This is CBN News Watch.
We begin with news from inside Israel, where after 7 months in office, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has received a long-awaited invitation to meet with President Joe Biden. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the gesture comes as Israel's president visits Biden today at the White House.
According to the Prime Minister's office, President Biden and Netanyahu shared a warm and long call. They discussed regional issues, including the threat from Iran, Israeli-Palestinian relations, and expanding peace in the region. Netanyahu also updated the president on the current status of the judicial reform legislation, a reason for the current rift in their relationship. The invitation did not mention whether the meeting would be at the White House or, as some have suggested, September's UN General Assembly. The invitation came on the eve of Israeli President Isaac Herzog's White House meeting. Herzog then addresses a joint session of Congress on Wednesday. The White House still voiced concerns about Netanyahu's government.
That doesn't mean that, and you shouldn't take away from the fact that they had a conversation today and that they'll meet again in the fall, that we have less concerns over these judicial reforms or less concerns over some of the extremist activities and behavior by some members of the Netanyahu cabinet. Those concerns are still valid.
It's how President Biden described Israel's current government under Netanyahu.
And this is one of the most extreme members of cabinets that I've seen. I go all the way back to Golda Meir.
Here in Israel, before the invitation, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert called on the United States to reevaluate its relations with Israel. He also advised world leaders not to meet with Netanyahu.
It's not just Ehud Olmert, it's also Ehud Barak, it's also former candidates for prime minister like Tzipi Livni and interim prime minister Yair Lapid. All of them are lobbying the Biden administration and other world leaders to put immense pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu.
Alex Trayman of Jewish News Syndicate says this kind of lobbying is a first for Israel.
It's absolutely unprecedented, and it's also very, very harmful to the state of Israel, because don't expect world leaders and others to parse between Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders. And what this actually does is magnify opposition to Israel generally, not just to Netanyahu and his policies.
Despite the invitation and phone conversation, deep divisions remain between the White House and Netanyahu on a number of issues, including an Iranian nuclear deal, building settlements in Israel's biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, plus the ongoing judicial reform issue. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, the summer heat wave is far from over. The relentless streak of dangerously hot days in Phoenix is expected to break a record for major U.S. cities today. It will be the 19th straight day the desert city is set to see temperatures at 110 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. And Phoenix isn't alone. The brutal heat reaching 133 degrees in Death Valley, California Sunday, just short of the record of 134 set in July of 1913. Turning now to Washington, where House Speaker Kevin McCarthy scored a win when Republicans came together to pass a nearly $900 billion defense bill. But that victory may not last long, as this crucial legislation is considered dead on arrival in the Democrat-controlled Senate. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us a look at the challenges keeping the defense bill from becoming law.
The annual defense bill typically receives bipartisan support, but this time around, all but 4 House Democrats opposed the legislation. At issue, a number of GOP-sponsored amendments regarding abortion, transgender rights, and diversity.
It is woefully irresponsible that extreme MAGA Republicans have hijacked a bipartisan bill that is essential to our national security and taken it over and weaponized it in order to jam their extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people.
Republicans continue to keep our promises. Technically, it's a bipartisan vote, but 4 Democrats vote with us. Are the rest of the Democrats against a pay raise for their veterans? Are they against deterring China for a safe future? Are they against rooting out wasteful spending?
The measure that mainly appears to have eroded the Democrats' support, a reversal of a Pentagon policy providing reimbursement for abortion travel across state lines. It's the same policy Senator Tommy Tuberville has been protesting since February by blocking the confirmation of all senior military officers.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Members of the House Freedom Caucus say they hope their defense bill motivates Senate Republicans to back Tuberville's efforts.
Taxpayer money is provided to the DOD and intended to provide for our national defense and our national security. It is not to promote and support the Biden administration's radical, immoral, pro-abortion agenda.
Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the current House defense bill stands no chance of reaching the president's desk.
What's real is the necessary capabilities, technologies, and fundamental social support for our troops and their families. That's what this all should have been focused on, not these domestic political issues.
The Senate now begins debate on its own defense bill, which cleared the Armed Services Committee with bipartisan support just a few weeks ago. When their final version passes, House and Senate negotiators will work on a compromise bill to send to President Biden. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, the movie Sound of Freedom has renewed the focus on sex trafficking. We're going to hear from a Christian woman in Southeast Asia who's fighting trafficking and providing shelter for more than 40 women and girls in her own home. We'll bring you her story right after this.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Welcome back. The summer surprise hit movie is still going strong at the box office. Sound of Freedom, about a former federal agent who went after sex trafficking, pulled in $27 million over the weekend to bring its total take to nearly $86 million so far. It could easily cross $100 million in the next several days. Sound of Freedom is bringing the issue of child sex trafficking to the forefront in America. CBN contributing correspondent Chuck Holton recently traveled to Southeast Asia to introduce us to an American woman who's rescuing girls from the sex trade. Take a look.
Across Southeast Asia, a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry thrives in the shadows, preying upon the vulnerable and innocent. Underage prostitution is commonplace, and in the middle of this darkness, an unexpected source of light.
I'm an ex-drug addict, drug dealer. I used to cook meth, and I lived in California, and I was a terrible person. I was really scandalous, very violent. I was a homosexual, and I let sin control me. And finally, God saved me when I was in prison.
But her amazing story doesn't end there. When Holly completed her sentence, she decided to go to Bible school.
All of a sudden, when I was getting ready to graduate, the Lord called me to Asia. And it was just like this instant love just poured through my heart for these people that I never met, I didn't know. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And so that's how I got called to come here.
Unsure of what God had for her, Holly bought a one-way ticket, and she found while walking the streets of her new home, her checkered past became an asset.
From my background, it was easy to see the traffickers. And in my mind, they were like little skinny wimps.
Before long, Holly was saving girls from the sex trade.
The Lord ended up putting on my heart to open a girls' house, just to open a safe place for women to come from the village if they wanted to study in the capital city.
But saving girls' lives cost the traffickers money.
Somebody attempted to kill me, to pull me off a moto, and I had the left side of my body basically destroyed. I was in the hospital all messed up.
At her lowest point, American missionaries Victor and Eileen Marks stepped in to support Holly's House of Refuge.
After I met Victor and Eileen, everything changed, and that now we're a lot more safe. We can actually get the bad guys incarcerated, which is a big deal.
More than 40 women and girls now shelter in Holly's home, all with horrific stories of abuse and redemption.
He put acid first. Yeah.
He put acid on you first?
Yeah. On
your face?
Yeah. And then my eye. So hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hot. Yeah, it burned your eyes.
Yeah.
So you couldn't see?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He grabbed your hair?
Yeah. And
pulled up?
Cut. Yeah.
He cut your hand?
Yeah. This first.
Oh, cut this hand first. Yeah.
And eyes. He cut.
Right here?
Yeah, here.
Right here?
Yeah.
The man attacked her with a meat cleaver and then left her to die in the dark.
So when I was laying out there in the field, I said, if there is a God, please help me. Back then, I was a staunch Buddhist, but I had heard about Jesus Christ before. I said, if there is a God, help your child, Jesus. I heard a sound, and it said, child, get up. When I heard that voice, child, get up, I couldn't get up. I had no power in me. There was blood all over, and I couldn't sit up. But I felt something that felt like a big hand go underneath my back and help lift me up.
Her family eventually found Nora and took her to the hospital. That's where Holly found her. With a safe place to stay and help from donors, Nora eventually recovered. Now she's found peace with the trauma of her past and can even be thankful for the tragedy that brought her to God. Is it difficult to come back here? Is it hard for you to come here again?
I freedom.
I have freedom.
I have freedom. Yeah. I'm okay. Happy. Yeah.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Yeah.
These girls aren't just being saved from sexual slavery. They're being invited into a new family.
It's not a program. You don't get saved and go into a program. You get saved and you come into the family of God. We're children of God.
From East Asia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Wow, what a powerful story. Still ahead, the push is on for electric vehicles, but are they really energy efficient? Not necessarily. 500,000 pounds of earth have to be mined just to make a single electric car battery, and that's far from all. We're going to take a look at the downsides of EVs when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Despite the ongoing push for electric vehicles, many analysts warn it will take longer for them to become mainstream than their supporters would like people to believe. Analysts also point out that EVs are not necessarily more energy efficient, and they come with unique safety risks. Brody Carter brings us this look at the downsides of electric vehicles.
Shopping for a new vehicle? There's a lot to keep in mind. Given the potential long-term investment, more car buyers are considering the environmental impact. In 2021, almost 1.5 million electric vehicles were registered to drive on the nation's highways.
They're perfectly good vehicles, have a huge utility function for people who are wealthy enough to have two cars. The second car you can charge conveniently overnight in your garage. What's not to like?
Still, Mark Mills, a Manhattan Institute physicist, says many of these environmentally conscious drivers don't understand the amount of energy it takes to make an electric vehicle.
So the supply chain to manufacture batteries is utterly dominated by China. They have a market share in energy minerals to make batteries, roughly double OPEC's market share in oil, or if you like, put differently, 3 to 4 times our market share, United States, in oil and gas. Like any vehicle, you have to mine materials to make the car. You have to mine a lot more metals to make an electric vehicle than you do a conventional vehicle, by about 1,000% on average.
Mark says a single electric car battery weighs about 1,000 pounds, requiring miners to dig up about 500,000 pounds of earth just to make one battery, using giant mining machines that burn diesel oil.
All those emissions from all that energy used to dig all those materials up cause carbon dioxide to be emitted somewhere else. So when the electric vehicle is delivered to your driveway, it's already arriving with massive emissions of carbon dioxide that you eventually sort of pay off, if you like. It's kind of like an inverse mortgage by driving that instead of an internal combustion engine.
Skip Bowman from Texas has been driving electric cars since Toyota released the Prius.
Never go back to a regular car. It's just the fun of driving the car. I've had Porsches in the past. I had Alfa Romeo. I had Mazda RX-7s. I love the thrill of having that acceleration, and there's nothing that can beat an EV.
For people like Skip, this is a perfect fit, although he points out some challenges people need to know before buying electric.
If you live in an apartment or condo or someplace that does not have a charger for you to charge overnight, then that's an issue with electric cars.
And knowing where to charge your car could become a problem given the nation's overall lack of charging stations. Of the 56,000 in North America, the majority are only found in major metropolitan areas.
That's called range anxiety, and there is range anxiety, especially if you go into the smaller areas of the state, like not the big cities.
And charging an EV has become a well-documented nightmare for drivers seeking adventure or just some R&R. Some report spending more time charging than they did sleeping.
Even the so-called superchargers, they take half an hour to 40 minutes to refill your battery, so to speak. That's almost 10 times longer than it takes to fill a conventional gasoline tank. So what that means, in very simple terms, is if you want it to have the equal function, equal utility, for convenience when you're driving on the road, you need a roughly 5 to 10 times more filling stations for the electric vehicles than you have for the gasoline vehicles.
The federal infrastructure law seeks to change this, with a goal of 500,000 new stations and plans for one every 50 miles on major highways. That will take time and money, however, to the tune of $5 billion over the next 5 years.
The United States' grid is not that strong. We're trying to maneuver off of coal and natural gas and just go with renewables, which has not proven to be completely dependable.
Another concern along these lines will be felt with falling temperatures.
The big downside of having an electric car is wintertime. The range is cut way back because the battery pack is now having to run a heater, and that heater really cuts down on your range.
If you're still interested in buying one, Kelley Blue Book estimates the typical EV costs roughly $56,000. That means only 36% of the U.S. population can likely afford one.
From the affordability standpoint, EVs are typically more expensive, and we definitely don't want to put low-income buyers out of the market.
The Biden administration hopes to sweeten the pot, promising a $7,500 tax credit if you buy a new electric vehicle.
The cost of the cars are expensive. There's no denying it. They are coming down.
One other noticeable came to light recently in Florida following Hurricane Ian. Some EV owners discovered salt water doesn't mix well with lithium-ion batteries, as cars caught fire due to saltwater damage. Junkyards filled with saltwater-damaged cars shows gas-powered cars squeezed together and electric cars spaced far apart in case one catches fire. Firefighters say it takes about 1,000 gallons to put out a normal car fire, and 10 times that for an electric vehicle.
The safety implications are the fact that these batteries get hot. They get hot when they're stored, not just when they're charging, just when they're sitting there stored. They combust. And, you remember, Chevy had the Volt. They had to pull them off the road. Why? Because too many of them were spontaneously catching fire.
The push towards electric vehicles is becoming a political red line. Some states even banning the sale of gas-powered vehicles. California making it an executive order. Still, only 1% of vehicles on the roadways today are EVs. But at the government's level, they're hopeful to push this technology sooner than you think, which is why it's so important to take all sides into consideration and purchase what's best for you. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Coming up, good news for fans of the popular crowd-funded series The Chosen about the life and ministry of Jesus. We're going to bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us.
October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place, all day, every day. The CBN News Channel. Download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com. CBN News.
Hollywood has been basically shut down, with both actors and writers now on strike, bringing new productions to a halt. But good news for fans of the series The Chosen, about the life and ministry of Jesus. Dallas Jenkins, the director and creator of the series, has announced it will continue filming the episodes of the 4th season after being granted a waiver to keep going with the production. The series was shut down after the Screen Actors Guild strike began Friday. Jenkins requested a waiver to continue production before the actors went on strike. He didn't get it at first, but he took to Instagram to plead his case, saying, "We fit all qualifications for an exemption, and we're the good guys. We treated your actors well." And the production company was given the green light Sunday. The Chosen also began airing on broadcast TV Sunday on the CW network, and you can find out where else you can see The Chosen and get the full story behind their exemption from the strike on cbnnews.com. I would call that divine favor there. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.